Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to another online lesson for Life Center PH King Street kids in South Carolina and all kids from around the world. I have brought me a friend today, my pet snake named Charcoal. His name is Charcoal because he is charcoal black. He is a nice garden snake. Do y'all like snakes? No, really, I don't like snakes, but this one seems pretty calm. So I brought him along for our story today because you see we are still continuing to study in the book of Acts. This is our last lesson, can you believe it, in the book of Acts. We've been in the book of Acts for a couple months now, talking about the power of the Holy Spirit. And you say, well, how does a snake have anything to do with it? Well, you got to pay attention to our lesson today because there is a snake in our story that does something really nasty to Paul. Today's story is found in Acts 28, verse 1 through 31. And it's going to tell you all kinds of things that Paul did. This was after the shipwreck. Remember last week we watched that Paul got shipwrecked, right? Okay. He got shipwrecked and they landed on an island. So today's story is going to continue that. You're going to find out what happened when they landed on the island. Some crazy, scary things happened. See, I look like I'm on an island right now. You see where I'm at? If you look around. Whoa. I mean, I'm in all kinds of... I look like I'm on a safari, but I look like I'm lost in an island. Kind of like Paul was stuck on this island. So I want you to pay attention to what happens today. And I also want you to think about all the things that we have talked about with Paul on his journey in his life. He went through all kinds of crazy things. He loved God with all of his heart, and he went out and preached the good news. But not everybody liked it. He got arrested for standing for Jesus. He got put in jail. He got taken across a sea in a ship that got shipwrecked by guards. I'm not sure that he really planned to do that. I don't think he really wanted to go on this ship, on the trip on the ship, and get wrecked, right? And then when he got to the island, some other bad things happened. But knowing Paul, he doesn't let that stop him. He did never let the bad things that happened to him stop him from telling people about Jesus Christ. That also made me start thinking about Matthew 28:19. Matthew 28:19 is the Great Commission. It tells us to go and make disciples of all nations. That is what we as Christians are called to do. No matter what's going on around us, we are to go and tell everybody about Jesus. Today's big point is I will go and tell everyone about Jesus. So I want you to think about Paul, and I want you to use him as an example to help you to remember to not be afraid to go and tell everyone about Jesus. Acts 1:8 was our memory verse back at the beginning of this unit. And we're going to go over it again because we need this to help us to be able to go and tell others about Jesus. Acts 1:8 says, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. That's what I want you to remember. There's more to the verse, but that's all you need to know right now. Because just knowing that simple verse will help you to remember to be the one to go and tell others about Jesus. So let me repeat that again. But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. When the Holy Spirit comes upon you, He will help you to be witnesses and tell everyone about Jesus. So today, as you're listening to the story and watching the clip here in a few minutes about Paul. Watch how he uses the power of the Holy Spirit to tell everyone about Jesus, even in the middle of an island, lost on an island. And don't forget about our snake in the story. And determine today, I will go and tell everyone about Jesus. I love y'all. Hope you enjoy the lesson.
After being tossed about on an angry sea for weeks, Paul and the rest of the waterlogged and weary passengers dragged themselves from the wreckage of their ship onto the shores of an island called Malta. The friendly people of the island built a fire for the tired travelers to warm themselves. Wanting to be helpful, Paul left the group in search of sticks to add to the fire. When he returned to the group on the beach, he put his bundle of sticks on the fire. Unfortunately, Paul didn't realize that he had gathered more than sticks. As soon as Paul's bundle hit the fire, a poisonous snake that had gotten mixed up with the sticks sprung from the flames and bit Paul on his hand. The islanders saw a venomous viper hanging from Paul's hand and said, "To have survived a shipwreck only to be bitten by a snake means that this man must be a horrible person. This must be punishment for his terrible crimes." But Paul wasn't being punished. In fact, he was about to show the islanders the mighty power of God. Paul raised his hand over his head and then swung his arm down. In one quick motion, Paul shook the snake off his hand, flinging the viper into the fire. Paul took a seat by the fire among the islanders and other shipwreck survivors. Their eyes trained on Paul. Everyone around the fire sat waiting for him to swell up and die from the poison. After a long time had passed, they realized that Paul was unharmed. The islanders, shocked that Paul had survived, changed their minds and declared, "He must be a god." Near the place where the shipwreck survivors had gathered lived Publius, the chief man of the island. Publius graciously welcomed Paul and his companions as guests to his nearby estate. Publius showed them incredible hospitality for 3 days. Publius' father was gravely ill with a high fever. When Paul heard this news, he went into the man's room and prayed that he would be healed. Paul laid his hands on Publius' sick father, and the illness instantly left the man. He was healed. When the people of Malta heard about this miracle, they brought their sick to Paul, who healed them all. Publius honored Paul and his companions and gave them everything they would need as they continued their journey to Rome.
Good morning, boys and girls. I'm glad you're with us. I hope that you've had a great time already this morning. I hope that you've enjoyed the music, that you've enjoyed the verses, that you've enjoyed the lesson. And now we're going to do our craft. I'm going to talk about our craft. Miss Christie is going to send out a little bit later all the supplies that you'll need, a list of the supplies, and I've also included the instructions on it. So if by chance you want to make it at home, everything's right there that you can go ahead and make your craft at home. But if you don't have the things that you need, don't worry. We'll have all this stuff at church when we finally get back to church. We're going to have so many crafts for you to do that you're just going to be so busy. But you know what? We'll be so happy to see you. So this month and well, for the past few weeks, we've been studying from the book of Acts, Extraordinary Acts. And this morning, this craft comes from the Acts chapter 28, where remember last week we talked about Paul being shipwrecked and how he told the people that were on the ship not to get off the ship because the Spirit had already told him that if they stayed on the ship, they would be safe. But this time, we're going to study about what happened to Paul a little bit later after they were shipwrecked and they finally were able to come off the ship. Now, remember, they had escaped once they were shipwrecked. They did come to land, and they built a fire. And the word tells us in Acts chapter 28 that Paul gathered up some wood to put on the fire. And when he gathered up the wood to put on the fire to make the fire bigger, a snake came out and latched onto his hand. And it was a very poisonous snake. So they kept sitting around watching to see what was going to happen to Paul. And all Paul did was just shake it off his hand and go on. He was fine because God had healed him instantaneous when that snake bit him. So we're going to make that craft this morning. If you see, the craft is right here. I've got it leaning up and hopefully it won't fall while we're talking about it. The first thing you're going to need is construction paper. You're going to need something really dark. You're going to need some white. You'll also need some yellow, orange, red, those type colors because you have to make it look like there's a fire down there. If you'll look, I have a white hand. Now you can also use a colored hand. It doesn't matter as long as it's kind of light so you can see it up against the dark background. Lay your hand on the paper, trace your hand, and then cut that out. If you can see, that's what I've done. I traced my hand, I cut it out, and I glued it onto my background. Now, make sure that it's far enough to the bottom that when you put the title on the top, you'll be able to see it. Okay? Then I took crepe paper, construction paper, and I used some ribbon to make the fire. I think that I used red and yellow and some orange down there to look like a fire was really, really hot. Okay, then I took my 2 pieces of popsicle sticks, and I use the big ones. You can use the small ones if you have the small ones, or you can use the big ones. And I colored them really dark brown so that they would look like wood. Now, I was just thinking you could possibly go outside in your yard if you want to pick up some sticks and put them there instead of the popsicle sticks. That is perfectly all right. Okay, so I glued those on top of my fire. If you can see, my popsicle sticks is glued on top of the fire so they look like the wood that's burning. Okay, now in Acts 28, we read that the snake or the viper came out and latched onto Paul's hand. So I had to go and buy a snake. I made one by drawing it, cutting it out, and putting it on there. But everybody laughed at it. They told me it looked like a flower. So I went and bought a plastic snake so I could put it on there. And I've got it laying right now. I haven't glued it yet, but I have it laying on the fire and on the hand that's there. And that is just to show us that when Paul, that snake, latched onto Paul's hand, Paul just shook it off and went on. God was faithful to him. So I hope that you have fun. Oh, I forgot. Don't forget to write your title at the top. Okay? Can you read it? Hopefully you can. If you can't, then it will be on your piece of paper. It will be on the instructions that come that Miss Christie's going to send you. But we love you. We miss you. We cannot wait to get it all back together so that we can just have a great time going over all these stories, talking about the things that we've learned about in the book of Acts, about extraordinary acts that you can do when the Spirit leads you. Bye. See you.